When Claire Morgan slid the prenatal report across the table. The ice in my water had not even finished melting. She was still in uniform, her shoulder patches perfectly straight, as if she had come to deliver an official notice rather than detonate a 7-year marriage. My eyes dropped to the gestational age printed beneath the ultrasound image. 12 weeks and 3 days. I counted backward once, then again. During that window, I had been out of town with my father while he underwent heart surgery. Claire did not wait for me to ask. Ethan, the baby isn't yours. My fingertips stopped at the edge of the photograph. She looked up at me. Her voice was steadier than it ever was while reading a statement in an interview room. It's Marcus's. Marcus Hale, her ex-boyfriend, and the narcotics detective who had recently transferred back to her precinct. I heard myself ask, "So you brought me here to ask for a divorce?" A faint crease appeared between her brows. No. She pushed a second document toward me. It was a set of pregnancy instructions from her obstetrician. One line recommended that a spouse attend future appointments. "I want you to raise this child as ours," she said. For a moment, all I could hear was the muted clink of silverware around us. Outside the restaurant window, someone pushed a stroller past the glass. "Marcus is under internal review right now," she continued. "He can't afford to be dragged into a personal scandal, and I'm up for my lieutenant promotion review next month. If this blows up now, it hurts both of us." That was when I finally understood. She had not come to confess. She had come to assign me a role. "Both of us?" I asked. Claire lowered her voice. "Ethan, you've always wanted a child. Once the baby is born, they'll call you Dad. I'm not leaving you, either." She said it as though she were offering compensation. I looked at the ring on her left hand. I had sold the down payment interest in an old apartment to buy it for her. Over 7 years of marriage, I had helped pay off her student loans, covered her mother Grace's rehabilitation bills, and put her younger brother Noah through community college. I had believed I was supporting a family. Now she had placed another man's child in front of me and expected me to keep paying for one. I picked up the prenatal report. I did not tear it. I did not throw it. I unlocked my phone and sent a message to Olivia Pierce, my private banking manager. Freeze every household account authorized under my name. Revoke Claire Morgan's supplementary card privileges. Suspend all automatic disbursements from the Reed Family Trust to Morgan family accounts. Claire saw the screen, and for the first time that afternoon, the composure left her face. "What are you doing?" I placed my phone face down on the table. "Stopping the loss." Her voice dropped sharply. "Ethan, don't be impulsive." I stood. "You're asking me to raise your ex-boyfriend's child while staying calm enough to protect both your careers. Tell me, Claire, did you ever see me as your husband? Or was I just the account that never ran dry?" She reached for my sleeve. I stepped out of reach. "Before leaving the restaurant," I said, "my lawyer will contact you. Until then, you don't get to use my money to finance your lies." I did not storm off to confront Marcus. I did not show up at Claire's precinct screaming that my wife had cheated on me. I went to the bank first. Olivia was waiting in a private conference room. She knew Claire, and she knew exactly how much authority I had granted the Morgan family over the years. She set a cup of coffee in front of me. "Temporary freeze or permanent revocation?" "Permanent." She pulled up the list. "Our household operating account, the family medical reserve, automatic payments for Grace Morgan's rehabilitation, Noah Morgan's tuition withdrawals, Claire's supplementary credit card, and an emergency line of credit backed by my personal credit profile." Not all of those funds were marital property. Some came from the income generated by my premarital trust. Some came from assets my father had left me. Claire had access because I had authorized it. She would lose access because I had the legal right to withdraw that authorization. That was what freezing the money actually meant. I was not trying to lock down every dollar overnight. I was ending the arrangement in which my accounts quietly absorbed the cost of everyone else's life. "Do you want us to notify Ms. Morgan directly?" Olivia asked. "The system notices are enough." She nodded, then paused. "The medical account covers Grace Morgan's rehabilitation. If we cut it off immediately, next week's treatment could be affected." I was silent for a few seconds. "Pay everything already scheduled. After that, switch to direct payment to the rehabilitation center. No more transfers into a Morgan family account." Olivia studied me. "Grace didn't do this," I said, "but Claire will no longer control the money." When the paperwork was finished, I went to see my attorney, David Grant. He listened without interrupting. He did not get excited, He did not promise to destroy anyone. He asked one question: "What evidence do you have?" I gave him photographs of the prenatal report, the restaurant reservation, the parking receipt, and backups of the messages I had just sent to the bank. "Do you have a recording of her admitting that Marcus is the father?" he asked. "No." David tapped one finger against the table. "Then do not publicly accuse him yet. Preserve what you have. File for divorce. Request a lawful paternity test when the time comes. If she attacks you publicly, we answer with verified facts." "She's a police officer," I said. "So is Marcus. That makes caution more important, not less. Their department has an internal affairs division. If you report anything, report only what can be checked: an undisclosed intimate relationship, a conflict of interest, misuse of duty time, falsified activity logs, anything supported by records." I nodded. By the time I returned to my car, Claire was calling. I answered. Her first question was not where I was. It was, why was my mother's account frozen? I stared at my reflection in the dark window and suddenly saw our marriage with perfect clarity. She had asked about the money first. "I didn't freeze Grace's treatment," I said. "I froze your authority over the funds." Her breathing faltered. "Ethan, you're going to kill my mother." "No. I already instructed the center to bill me directly." Silence. Then I said, "See, Claire, what you're actually afraid of isn't that your mother will lose care. It's that you can no longer move my money whenever you want." She did not answer. She knew I was right. Claire quickly began rewriting what had happened as a misunderstanding. She sent more than a dozen messages. The first said she had been terrified. The second said Marcus had been in a terrible place emotionally. The third said she had always meant to tell me, but there had never been a good time. The fourth finally revealed what mattered most to her. "If the promotion board learns I'm carrying his child, they'll question my professional judgment. Ethan, you know how hard I've worked to get here." I stared at the words for a long time. She had worked hard. Claire had started as a patrol officer. She had been injured in the line of duty and taken part in 2 dangerous operations. She had saved people. She was not a cartoon villain. But every hardship she had endured still did not entitle her to make me swallow her betrayal. I began building a timeline. No hacking. No stalking. I organized records I already had a lawful right to see. Our shared family calendar listed 4 night operations during the previous 3 months. The visitor log from my building showed that Marcus's vehicle had dropped her off on 2 of those nights. They had not entered the building together, but his car had remained at the curb for more than 20 minutes each time. Our home security system showed Claire entering after 2 in the morning on both dates. The precinct's public duty schedule showed her shift ending at 1. None of those records had been created for a divorce case. They existed because Claire and I shared a calendar, because the garage automatically logged visiting vehicles, because the security system belonged to a property I had owned before the marriage, and because the precinct posted non-confidential schedules through its community information system. I could access them because I was the homeowner and an authorized user of the shared records. What did they prove? That on multiple nights when Claire said she had been working, she had met Marcus after her shift. They did not prove they had slept together, but combined with the pregnancy timeline and Claire's own admission that the child was not mine, they supported the same story. Then I called Grace's rehabilitation center. The administrator told me that 3 times over the previous 2 months, Claire had requested early refunds from the prepaid rehabilitation balance I had funded. She had claimed the family needed temporary liquidity. I had never been told. I asked the center to send me copies of the refund requests. Claire's signature was on every one. The receiving account did not belong to Grace. It belonged to an outdoor training company registered under Marcus Hale's name. The administrator sounded uneasy. Officer Morgan told us it was owned by a friend who supplied rehabilitation equipment. My stomach tightened. Marcus was not only sleeping with my wife. He had been receiving my money. I sent everything to David. His reply came quickly. "This matters. It may show that restricted trust distributions were diverted under a false purpose. Have an accountant verify the trail before drawing conclusions." I hired forensic auditor Rachel Stone. After reviewing the documents, she said only, "Give me 3 days. Can you trace it? If the money left an account you authorized, it left a path." For the first time since the restaurant, I felt grateful for an old habit. I kept records. Every large transfer required a memo. Every recurring payment had a designated purpose. Claire used to call that habit stingy. Now I understood. Records were not stinginess. They were the ground beneath your feet after someone tried to rewrite the life you had lived. Claire came home on the third day to collect some of her things. I did not stop her. The house had been mine before the marriage. The renovations and part of the mortgage had been paid during the marriage, and those contributions could be valued and divided according to law. But she would no longer swipe my card while moving pieces of our home into a life with Marcus. She stood at the entrance to the walk-in closet and noticed that the safe code had been changed. Her expression hardened. "You're locking me out of our own safe? It contains my premarital records and trust seals. From now on, anything removed gets inventoried first." She gave a tired, bitter laugh. "We've been married 7 years, Ethan. Now you're treating me like a thief." "I'm not treating you like a thief." I looked directly at her. "I'm finally accepting that you are capable of hurting me." Her lips trembled. "I told you I'll deal with the baby." "How?" I asked the question quietly. "By giving birth and putting my name on the certificate?" She looked away. That movement answered me more clearly than words. "Have you thought about what happens when the child grows up and learns who his biological father is?" Her head snapped back toward me. "Marcus is not fit to be a father. He has trauma. He has disciplinary problems. He would ruin that child's life. And I wouldn't?" "You're stable," she said quickly. "You're kind. Responsible. You would give him a real home." For once, I did not feel rage, only cold. She knew exactly which man was reliable. That was why she wanted me to carry the consequences. "So you chose a man unfit to be a father as your lover," I said, "then chose the stable husband as the father." The blood drained from her face. "Do you have to make it sound that ugly?" "The facts are ugly." She gathered several pieces of clothing into her arms and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she stopped. "I'm not signing a divorce agreement. You're angry right now, that's all. Then we go to court." She turned back. "You'll regret this." I said nothing, because the real regret had not even started yet. She still believed I was bluffing. She believed that if she delayed the divorce until the child was born, my anger would fade and my instinct to protect her would return. She had forgotten something. My softness had always depended on my willingness to keep making a home for her. I had already begun changing the locks. Rachel sent me her preliminary audit on the third day. Over the previous 6 months, Claire had moved money out of the family medical reserve 6 times. The stated purposes were Grace's rehabilitation equipment, temporary nursing care, and prescription reimbursements. 4 payments had gone to the rehabilitation center. 2 had gone to Marcus's outdoor training company. The total was $86,000. It was not a fortune by the standards of major financial fraud, but the nature of the money was unmistakable. Those funds came from trust income one had designated for Grace's treatment. Claire had used her dual position, as my spouse and Grace's daughter, to redirect them. Marcus's company had issued 2 invoices. The description read, "Rehabilitation Support Training Consultation." Rachel found that the company had no medical rehabilitation license. Its registered office was a desk in a shared workspace. Marcus was its only employee. The evidence existed because bank transfers leave records. Refund requests require signatures. Invoices carry tax identification numbers. And the trust disbursement memo stated the purpose of every payment. Copies existed at the bank, the rehabilitation center, Marcus's company, and in my trust management files. I had the right to review them as the source of the funds and the beneficiary responsible for overseeing their authorized use. What did the records prove? They proved that Claire had directed restricted funds to a company controlled by Marcus. They did not prove she had been paying him to be her lover. They did prove that she had concealed the destination of my money, and may have helped him profit improperly. I gave Rachel's report to David. He recommended sending formal demand letters first. Claire would be required to explain the transfers, and Marcus's company would be asked to return any improperly received funds. At the same time, we would prepare a documented complaint for internal affairs. "Is that too much?" I asked. David held my gaze. "She is a police officer. She understands evidence and conflicts of interest better than most people. She is allowed to make a terrible romantic decision. She is not allowed to route your restricted medical funds through another officer's private company." That afternoon, Noah called me. Claire's younger brother sounded panicked. "Ethan, did you cancel my tuition? This semester is already paid. Starting next term, no payments will go through Claire. If you stay enrolled, I can pay the school directly through graduation." He was quiet for several seconds. "My sister said you were trying to punish our whole family. Do you want to see the records?" He did not answer. but I sent him the school payment history and the new direct payment instructions. 10 minutes later, he replied. I didn't know all of that money came from you. I stared at the message and thought about the last 7 years. Claire had always said she would take care of her family. My role had been to transfer the money. That made her look like the pillar holding everyone up. It made me an invisible wallet. Now that the wallet had closed, people were finally noticing there had been a person attached to it. Marcus approached me for the first time the day after the demand letter was delivered. He did not come to my house. He waited outside my office building. I ran a company that developed evidence management software for law firms, insurers, and several public safety agencies. I was not some all-powerful mastermind, but I understood better than most people which records survived, which records mattered, and which records could be admitted in court. Marcus stood beside a car in civilian clothes. Fatigue shadowed his eyes. Ethan, we need to talk. I stopped 3 paces away. You can talk through your lawyer. He glanced around the parking lot. Claire is pregnant. If you keep pushing her this hard, it could hurt the baby. As the baby's father, you're free to take care of her. His face tightened. It's more complicated than you think. It is, I said. If this were only adultery, it would be much simpler. Now there's a money trail and a professional conduct issue. His voice lowered. You know I'm already under internal review. If you submit this, I could lose my job. Did you know that when money designated for Grace's treatment was transferred to your company, Claire transferred it? I nodded once. I'll remember that answer. He realized too late what he had done. What I mean is, she told me the money was available. My company did provide rehabilitation advice for Grace. Who provided it? I know a physical therapist. Was there a contract? He said nothing. What's the therapist's license number? His jaw hardened. I did not press further. His silence was useful enough. Before leaving, he leaned closer and said, Don't turn this into something that can't be fixed. Claire marrying you doesn't mean you own her. For a moment, I almost laughed. I never wanted to own her. I'm simply done raising your child, paying your bills, and protecting your secrets. After he left, I wrote an immediate summary of the conversation and sent it to David. There were security cameras covering the parking lot. I had not recorded the conversation because our state's consent rules made secret audio recording legally risky, but I could create a contemporaneous memorandum. Such a record could support a timeline because it was written immediately after the encounter and preserved by both my lawyer and me. The public security footage could confirm that the meeting had occurred. It could not prove a crime by itself. It could show that Marcus understood the internal review and the disputed funds might threaten his position. From that moment on, he was no longer merely the other man. He was a man already preparing to shift the blame. Claire finally agreed to discuss the divorce. She chose a coffee shop near her precinct. She was not in uniform. A loose jacket concealed most of her stomach, but I noticed the care with which she lowered herself into the chair. I can make Marcus return the money, she said. That is the minimum you should do. She looked up. Then withdraw the internal affairs complaint. I did not answer immediately. Her composure cracked. Ethan, my promotion review is coming up. I cannot have a disciplinary investigation open right now. So you didn't come here to discuss the divorce. I met her eyes. You came to negotiate a trade. Her lower lip trembled. Do you have to destroy my career? I looked at the woman I had loved for 7 years. Claire had been injured chasing suspects. When interviewing frightened children, she knelt so she could speak to them at eye level. She was not without compassion. Yet even now, the first thing she protected was her position. You are pregnant by another officer, I said. You wanted me to sign on as the father. You transferred restricted medical funds into his company. Both of you work inside the same police system. I kept my voice level. Those are not my emotions. Those are facts. Her eyes filled. Marcus helped me when I was new. Other officers shut me out, and he took me onto his cases. Later, when he was suspended, I felt like I couldn't abandon him. So you abandoned me instead. She froze. For the first time, she had no way to turn the conversation back toward Marcus's suffering. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. You did. She closed her eyes. What happens to the baby? That is your responsibility and Marcus's. If a lawful paternity test shows I am not the father, I will not assume a father's legal obligations. Her voice shook. He doesn't want the baby. I watched her in silence. There it was, the real source of her panic. Marcus did not want responsibility. Her promotion could not survive a scandal. The baby needed a legal father, and I was stable, respectable, financially secure, and known for forgiving too much. She had decided I was the best fit. But being suitable did not make me indebted. I pushed the divorce agreement across the table. Sign it. Marital property will be divided according to law. We'll arrange a paternity test after the child is born, or earlier if the court approves a lawful prenatal test. If I am not the father, my name will not go on the birth certificate. Tears slipped down her face as she stared at the pages. Ethan, is there really no way back? The moment you tried to assign me another man's child, there was no way back. Claire did not sign. She chose silence as a delaying tactic. Then the first anonymous email arrived. The subject line read, "You think Claire only lied to you?" There were 3 photographs attached. The first showed Claire and Marcus leaving an apartment building. In the second, Marcus's hand rested against the small of her back. The third was a parking receipt from an obstetrics clinic. I did not accept them at face value. Anonymous evidence is easy to fabricate and difficult to authenticate. I forwarded the message to David and Rachel. Do not publish any of it, David warned. Rachel checked the available metadata. The photographs appeared to have been taken 2 months earlier at Riverbend, a short-term apartment complex. I had no lawful way to obtain private building footage, and I did not try. But the parking receipt displayed the last digits of the transaction number. I checked my old credit card statements. On the same date, Claire had used my supplementary card at a nearby pharmacy to buy folic acid and anti-nausea medication. The card was frozen now. The old statements still existed. That did not prove she and Marcus had been living together. It did show that she had begun preparing for the pregnancy long before she told me. I added the information to the timeline. That night, Claire called. Her voice was cold. Did you hire someone to follow me? No. Then who took those pictures? I paused. You received them too? Silence. That gave me the answer. The anonymous email had not been sent only to me. Maybe the sender was someone close to Marcus. Maybe it was someone at the precinct who already disliked them. It did not matter. What mattered was that the loss of control would force both of them to act. Ethan, Claire said quietly, don't let those photos get out. I won't publish anonymous photographs. I heard her exhale. Then I added, I'll only release facts I can prove. Her relief vanished. What does that mean? It means that if either of you tells people I'm abusive, controlling, or punishing a pregnant woman out of spite, I will disclose the minimum verified facts necessary to defend myself. Who said you abused me? I did not answer. Earlier that day, David had captured a post from one of Marcus's friends. Some rich men lose control the moment they can't own a woman. Imagine cutting off your pregnant wife's living expenses. The image beneath it showed a police badge beside a pair of baby shoes. No names. Enough detail for anyone in our shared circles to guess. I saved the post. Public disclosure was not revenge. But when someone began constructing a lie around me, facts became the only way out. I made my first public response 3 days after the insinuations about me began spreading. It was not a live stream. It was not an angry essay. It was a statement issued through counsel. It contained only verifiable facts. First, Claire Morgan and I had entered divorce proceedings. Second, I had revoked access to certain household accounts funded through my personal trust, while all previously scheduled medical treatment continued to be paid directly to the provider. Third, funds designated for a specific medical purpose appeared to have been transferred to a third-party company without rehabilitation credentials, and an independent audit was underway. Fourth, any claims that I had abused Claire, abandoned a pregnant woman, or maliciously terminated Grace Morgan's medical care were false. The statement did not identify the baby's father. It did not include the ultrasound. It did not insult Claire. But it gave people enough to start asking the right questions. Grace called me. Her voice was rough. Ethan, is it true? Which part? She began to cry. The money. I will finish paying for every treatment already scheduled. I said, if you're comfortable with it, I'll continue paying the center directly through the end of this course. But no further money will pass through Claire. Grace was silent for a long time. She told me you were cutting off the whole family, that I'd have to stop treatment. I closed my eyes. I never said that. A muffled sob came through the phone. How did she become this person? I had no answer. I had been asking myself the same question. Noah came to see me the next day. He placed a student loan application on my desk. I'm applying for aid next semester. You don't have to. I promised to get you through school. He kept his eyes down. That was before. Before what? Before I learned it wasn't my sister paying for everything. He looked up. Ethan, Claire was wrong. But the baby. I cut him off gently. The baby is innocent. That is exactly why the child should be supported by his biological parents. Noah nodded. He did not ask me to forgive her. That hurt more than another argument would have. When a family finally begins to see clearly, it usually means the damage has already become impossible to ignore. 5 days after the statement, Internal Affairs emailed me. They had accepted the complaint and requested the full supporting package. I organized the bank trail, the timeline, Claire's messages, and the trust restrictions. I left out the anonymous photographs. Their source was unknown. I would not use contaminated evidence to chase a clean result. An internal affairs investigation is not a television drama. No one stormed into the precinct on the first day and dragged Claire and Marcus away in handcuffs. They interviewed me first. 2 investigators sat across from me in a conference room. One introduced himself as Harris. The other was Lena Park. Harris began with exact questions. Did you personally witness Claire Morgan and Marcus Hale engaged in intimate conduct? No. Do you possess an audio recording in which Ms. Morgan states that Detective Hale is the father? No. Then on what basis do you believe the child is connected to him? I provided my memorandum from the restaurant, Claire's later messages, the pregnancy timeline, and screenshots of Marcus's statements referring to the child. Lena reviewed them. These materials may be more relevant to your divorce action. I understand. I folded my hands on the table. My complaint is not primarily about adultery. It concerns restricted funds transferred to Marcus Hale's company, and whether 2 officers failed to disclose an intimate relationship that created a conflict of interest. Harris asked, "Are you willing to provide original bank records? Certified copies can be supplied through counsel and the trust administrator." The interview lasted 2 hours. They did not take my side. That reassured me. I wanted a process. I did not want strangers to hear my story and punish someone on emotion alone. A few days later, Rachel found a more serious problem with Marcus's invoices. The dates listed for the supposed rehabilitation consultations overlapped with official police training Marcus had apparently attended. If the attendance record was accurate, he could not have performed the services he billed for. That conflict mattered. But his departmental attendance record was not mine to obtain. I submitted the invoice dates to Internal Affairs and left the lawful comparison to them. The records existed because business invoices had to identify service dates. Copies were preserved in the company's accounting system, the tax trail, and the trust payment materials. Rachel had obtained them through the payment documentation already available to us. What could they prove? That the claimed service dates were questionable. Whether they actually conflicted with Marcus's police attendance had to be established by investigators with authority to access those records. That was the difference between evidence and revenge. Wanting him exposed did not give me the right to dig through protected personnel files. It gave me the right to hand lawful evidence to the people authorized to investigate. After Claire learned I had been interviewed, she sent me a voice message that sounded close to panic. "Ethan, why are you doing this? I made a mistake in my personal life." "That's all." I listened once. Then I replied, "You put my money into it too." She did not answer. Romantic betrayal could be excused as confusion. The ledger could not. Marcus began trying to save himself. First, he returned the $86,000 to the trust account. The transfer memo read, "Refund of funds received in error." Then his attorney sent me a letter denying that he and Claire had engaged in any coordinated fraud. It claimed every payment had been initiated by Claire for legitimate rehabilitation consulting connected to Grace's care. It accused me of turning a marital dispute into an attack on his career. I read the letter without anger. It pushed Claire to the front. Marcus intended to survive by making her carry everything. Claire finally understood that after her first Internal Affairs interview. She waited outside my office building in heavy rain. She had no umbrella. One shoulder of her coat was soaked through. I stopped several feet away. "Marcus says I arranged all the payments," she said. "Didn't you?" Her face went pale. "I made the transfers. But he told me his company could provide rehabilitation consulting. He said we could process the payment first and complete the documentation afterward." "You're a police officer. You heard that sentence and didn't recognize the problem?" Tears mixed with rain on her face. "I recognized it." Her voice broke. "I just didn't want to." That was the first truly honest thing she had said. She had not been ignorant. She had chosen not to know. "I thought he was desperate," she said. "He'd been suspended. Everyone looked down on him. I wanted to help him once." "And me?" She looked at me. and something in her expression finally collapsed. You were always fine. You handled everything. I thought you would understand. I can be betrayed too, Claire. My voice remained quiet. I can hurt. And one day, I can stop wanting to understand. She reached toward me. I stepped back. Her hand closed on empty air. Ethan, I know I was wrong now. Can we at least stop the divorce for a while? I shook my head. I'll have the baby on my own. She rushed on. I won't ask you to raise him. I'll repay the money. I can withdraw from the promotion review. If she had said those things in the restaurant, they might have kept me awake for months. Now they sounded like repairs attempted after the house had already burned. All of those things are what you should do, I said, not payment for getting me back. She stood in the rain. For the first time. She did not use the pregnancy, her career, her mother, or Marcus to pressure me. She asked only, then what can I do? Take responsibility. Claire's regret truly began when three things happened at once. First, Marcus returned the money, but internal affairs continued investigating him. He had believed repayment would end the matter. Instead, the repayment confirmed that the money had entered his company. Second, Grace learned where the rehabilitation funds had gone and ordered Claire out of her hospital room. You do not get to use my illness as the excuse for lying to Ethan, Grace told her. Claire stood crying in the hallway. No one opened the door. Third, Noah stopped accepting any money routed through Claire. He went to the school's financial aid office and applied for loans in his own name. I don't want to spend another year not knowing who is actually supporting me, he told her. None of those events destroyed Claire. They did something worse. They removed her excuses one by one. She had told herself she was protecting the baby, her mother, Marcus, and her career. Eventually she had to confront the truth. She had been protecting herself from the humiliation of making a clear choice. She sent me a long email. She did not ask me to return. She described, in detail, how she and Marcus had reconnected. The first time he contacted her after transferring back, he said he could not sleep. The second time, he said the internal review was crushing him. The third time, after drinking, he told her that ending their relationship years earlier had been the greatest mistake of his life. Claire did not stop him. She told herself that because she was married, nothing serious could happen. That was the most frightening sentence in the entire email. People rarely begin blurring boundaries because they intend to destroy a marriage. They do it because they believe they can control how far the damage goes. Later, they met at the Riverbend short-term apartment. Claire wrote, after that day, I knew we could no longer call ourselves friends. My hand remained motionless over the keyboard for a long time. The email mattered because it was Claire's own written account of how the relationship developed. Copies existed in my inbox, David's document archive, and the email provider's server records. It showed that she admitted crossing marital boundaries and hiding the relationship. By itself, it did not establish every physical fact between her and Marcus. A lawful paternity test would address that question more directly. For the divorce negotiations, however, it was enough. I did not reply. I forwarded the email to David. She's finally telling the truth, he said. Truth doesn't move time backward. The real public exposure came after Marcus lost control of his counterattack. Through an anonymous account, he published a long post accusing me of controlling Claire and using money to dominate the Morgan family. It claimed that after learning she was pregnant, I cut off all her living expenses to force her into an abortion. The post was more vicious than the earlier insinuations. It did not name me directly, but it described my profession, my charitable work, and Claire's position as a police officer clearly enough that people in our circles knew exactly who it meant. The comments filled quickly. Rich men are always the best at pretending to be victims. No matter what a pregnant woman did, cutting her off is abuse. I did not respond immediately. David and I spent the next day preparing a factual statement. This time, we attached evidence. Everything sensitive was redacted. The first set of documents was a letter from Grace's rehabilitation provider confirming that I continued to pay all scheduled treatment directly. The second showed the trust's stated medical purpose and the transfers received by Marcus's company. The third contained excerpts from Claire's email acknowledging that the child was not mine and that she would not seek to make me responsible for raising him. The fourth was a formal demand that the anonymous account stop publishing the false allegation that I had attempted to force a pregnant woman to terminate her pregnancy. The title was simple: Factual Clarification Regarding Recent False Allegations. I did not insult Claire. I did not insult Marcus. But each document opened another door. People finally saw that the story was not about a pregnant wife abandoned by a cruel husband. It was not about a decorated officer being crushed by a wealthy civilian. It was about a marriage in which one person had cheated. Restricted medical funds had been redirected, and an attempt had been made to turn the husband into the legal father of another man's child. That was what exposure meant to me, not throwing every private detail into public view for entertainment. Releasing enough verified truth to defend myself after someone else had built a lie. The consequences came quickly. Technical information linked the anonymous account to the phone of Marcus's friend, Ben. Under pressure, Ben admitted that Marcus had supplied the material. Internal Affairs added the conduct to its investigation. Claire stopped protecting Marcus. She submitted a written statement to the department. She admitted that she and Marcus had an undisclosed intimate relationship. She admitted transferring designated family funds to his company. She admitted that after learning she was pregnant, she had tried to make her husband assume the role of the child's father. She did not write excuses into the statement. That was the heaviest step in her regret. Not crying, putting her own name beside the responsibility. The investigation concluded 3 months later. Marcus was suspended pending further disciplinary action. The findings included failure to disclose an intimate relationship with another officer in the same department, acceptance of questionable funds through a private company, and participation, through an associated account, in the distribution of false public allegations. The invoice issue was referred to the appropriate tax and ethics authorities for further review. Claire was demoted and reassigned. Her eligibility for promotion review was suspended for 2 years. She was not fired. The money had been transferred from a household account she was authorized to use. It had been returned, and investigators found no evidence that she had used official police authority to obtain a formal government benefit. But the department concluded that she had shown severe failures of judgment and had not disclosed a serious conflict of interest. The result was not melodramatic. It still changed the direction of her life. She went from being one of the youngest candidates for lieutenant to handling routine work in a temporary records assignment. Before the child was born, a lawful paternity test was completed through the divorce proceedings. The result showed that I was not the father. Marcus was. When I received the report, I did not feel triumphant. I simply let out a breath I felt as if I had been holding for months. The report existed because the divorce involved a dispute over birth registration and potential parental obligations. The court had authorized a lawful paternity process, and certified copies were preserved by the testing facility. The court, and both parties' attorneys, it established that I had no biological relationship to the child. Together with Claire's previous written admissions, it removed the foundation for any attempt to impose a father's obligations on me. The divorce ended in a negotiated settlement. The house remained mine. My premarital trust and personal assets remained mine. Our joint savings were divided according to law. I did not seek reimbursement for the legitimate treatment Grace had already received. Claire and Marcus were jointly responsible for returning the $86,000 and part of the audit expenses. Claire no longer fought the terms. When we signed, she sat across from me with a pale face and a visibly rounded stomach. "Ethan," she said softly, "I really did love you once. I believe you." A small light appeared in her eyes. Then I said, "But later, you loved protecting your own image more." The light disappeared. She lowered her head. "I know. This time." She did not argue. On the day the baby was born, Grace sent me a photograph. It showed a wrinkled newborn wrapped in a hospital blanket. She deleted it almost immediately. A second message followed. "I'm sorry. Wrong recipient." I replied. "I hope the baby is healthy." I did not hate the child. He had not chosen the circumstances of his birth. But wishing him well did not make me responsible for him. Claire never asked me to see him. That was best for everyone. At first, Marcus refused to sign a child support agreement. He claimed that the disciplinary proceedings had left him without stable income. Claire submitted the paternity report and his earlier messages to family court. This time, she did not come looking for me to absorb the consequences. She followed the process herself. When Noah graduated, he mailed me an invitation. He said he hoped I would attend. I did, not as Claire's family. As Ethan, the man who had genuinely helped him. Grace was there, leaning on a cane. "I owe you a thank you," she said. "You don't." She shook her head. "I do. For years, I thought Claire was the one holding our family together. None of us saw you." I did not tell her it was fine. Being unseen had hurt. I only said, "Take care of yourself." As I left the auditorium, I saw Claire standing at a distance in ordinary clothes with the baby in her arms. Marcus was not there. She noticed me but did not approach. She gave a small nod. I returned it. At last, there was no argument between us. There was nothing unfinished left to say. Months later, I heard that she had transferred into community policing. The work was tedious. Promotions came slowly. She did it seriously. She stayed away from every matter connected to Marcus and stopped allowing private loyalties to shape professional judgment. That was not redemption by decree. It was simply what happened when a person finally accepted consequences and tried not to repeat the same failure. As for me, I sold the house that had become crowded with old memories. I bought a smaller apartment. Every household authorization was removed from my private accounts. The new asset documents carried one name: mine. I did not stop trusting people forever. I learned that trust was not the same as unlimited access. Marriage did not mean that whenever one person made a catastrophic choice, the more stable partner had to clean it up. A year later, I spoke at a forum on courtroom evidence management. My topic was the boundary between private asset protection and electronic evidence in family disputes. During the question period, someone asked, "If evidence will hurt someone you once loved, should you still use it?" I paused. I saw the prenatal report sliding across the restaurant table. Marcus's 2 invoices. Grace crying outside a hospital room. The brief photograph of a newborn child. Then I answered, "Evidence should not be used to hurt someone. It should be used to place responsibility where it belongs." The room grew quiet. Without evidence, the most stable person is often forced to carry the greatest burden. After the forum, David clapped a hand on my shoulder. "You're starting to sound like a lawyer. Don't insult me." He laughed. So did I. It had rained earlier that evening. Streetlights shone in the puddles like broken strands of gold. When I opened the door to my apartment, the entryway was clean. No police boots belonging to Claire. No rehabilitation bills for Grace. No tuition reminders for Noah. No unexpected prenatal report waiting to force someone else's choices into my life. I poured myself a glass of water. My fingers touched the cool surface. And I realized I had not thought about the ice water in that restaurant for a long time. I once believed I had lost my wife. Later, I understood that what I had truly lost was unconditional trust in another adult. That was not entirely a tragedy. No adult should be given unconditional trust. Love needs boundaries. Generosity needs records. Assets need permissions. Marriage needs honesty. Those ideas may sound cold, but they keep betrayal from leaving a person with nothing. I turned off the light. Outside, the rain gradually stopped. An email from Olivia appeared on my phone. "The revised trust authorization documents have been completed." I read it and replied, "Received." Then I set the phone aside. I was no longer anyone's bank account. No longer the foundation of someone else's respectable image. No longer the replacement father for another man's child. I was Ethan Reed, a man who had finally taken his own name back from someone else's lie.